Good morning, Moldova. As you may have heard, this is my first time in Moldova, and I have to say, I've just been so delighted and so impressed with what's going on here. It's really quite extraordinary, and I've already, in just this last few days, come to realize that Moldova is the world's undiscovered innovation powerhouse. I'll tell you. So I am delighted to have the opportunity now to share with you some of what I've learned over many years about what it takes to go global. So part of my experience has been over the many years traveling around the world to innovation ecosystems, because Pegasus Tech Ventures, we invest globally. We've invested in almost 300 companies around the world. No one in Moldova yet, but we'll have to see if we can fix that. So what I want to share with you now is actually the different presentation than I was told I would be presenting. So, in any case, I did present this yesterday for those of you who were in the audience yesterday. We'll see if we can get the Going Global presentation up on the screen. But while we're waiting for that, what I'm going to share with you are the top 10 lessons learned about going global and how to take your brilliant innovation to Silicon Valley or any other global ecosystem you want to reach. And so, lesson number one, maybe we'll get it up here, but lesson number one is, as entrepreneurs, your focus has got to be on creating compelling value for your target customers, not on making a lot of money. Now, of course, I know you're all mission-driven and you're all focused on creating value, but I can't tell you how often we see entrepreneurs flying into Silicon Valley and they are pitching us on their company, and they're trying to convince us that they can make a lot of money. And that's not what we want to hear. What we want to hear is that you are just passionately committed and determined to create value for your target customers, to make a dent in the universe. Because I will tell you, if you are motivated by making money, when the going gets tough, there are other ways to make money, right? But if you're committed to a passion to making a dent in the universe, when the going gets tough, you'll figure out a way to get around it. All right? So that's lesson number one. Lesson number two is, before you come to Silicon Valley, before you go global, you've got to figure out how to validate your concept here. So all too often, again, we get plane loads of entrepreneurs that fly into Silicon Valley, and what they do is, the first thing they want to do is talk to investors. And that's absolutely the wrong thing to do. The first thing you should be doing is talking to customers. And so if you come to Silicon Valley and your first meeting is with a group of investors, they're all going to smile politely, and they will, treat you nicely, and they'll tell you how impressed they are with you, but they're not going to invest in you. They want to see that you have the commitment to find customers in the United States who can validate your concept and what you're going to create, okay? So that relates to another lesson that we've learned. A lot of pitch coaches will tell you that, sort of the big idea is you've got to show your passion, right? You've got to show your passion and commitment. And I agree, you got to show your passion and commitment. But that's not good enough. You've got to show that you know how to sell. And one of the things that is a crazy aspect of all of our cultures is there's no culture in the world that values salespeople, as far as I can tell. Isn't that bizarre? Have you ever, when you guys were all in fourth grade and somebody came into into your classroom and they said, "So, what do you want to be when you grow up?" None of you said, I want to be a salesperson, right? Fair? Okay, so the challenge you've got as an entrepreneur is it's not good enough to have a vision, to be bold. It's not good enough. You've got to figure out, how to sell. You've got to really want to go out there and get slapped in the face 20 times before you wind up closing a deal. If you can't do that, then you're not going to be able to be successful as an entrepreneur. Okay, and so then another lesson learned is you've got to build a high-performing team. And so your instinct as an entrepreneur is to sort of get together with some of your buddies and start up a company. And, when I was an entrepreneur, so I started out as an entrepreneur in Silicon Valley. That's how I got hooked on Silicon Valley. So when I started out as an entrepreneur in Silicon Valley, I thought the big idea was, we get together with people who share this vision for, making a dent in the universe. And, we would play ping pong and give back rubs and drink beer and sing Kumbaya. That was, right? And so, right? That's startup, right? And then when we were in the conference room trying to make a decision, we would start yelling at each other. And I thought, wait, that's terrible. That's, dysfunctional. We're screaming at each other over how to make a decision. I thought we were all aligned. But the reality is, you've got to build a team with a bunch of different perspectives on the business you're getting in. And if you get a bunch of smart people together who have different perspectives, then what's going to happen when you're trying to make a decision? You're going to get into arguments. And it turns out that's a good thing. You need these different perspectives in your organization. You've got to have people who are optimistic. You've got to have, believe it or not, people who are pessimistic. You've got to have people who see the world for the way the world truly is. So those different perspectives are going to come into conflict. And we have this concept of we call tapping creative conflict. And so listen to everybody. Let them argue. But you've got to create a culture where you can argue, you can get to a decision, and then you can commit to that decision. And so there's a phrase we use called disagree, then commit. If you sabotage a decision of the organization, you should be off the bus, right? So you can disagree, but then you commit. Okay, so now, when you're coming to Silicon Valley or anywhere, after you land, I said, the first thing you need to be doing is doing your homework on who are your target customers, how do you get to them, how many of them can you talk with before you start talking to investors. And so what we encourage entrepreneurs to do when they come to Silicon Valley is you've got to figure out how to go native. So if you come to Silicon Valley and you're and I hate to say this to you guys, but if you share your WhatsApp and your WhatsApp is +373, I'm sorry, we're going to know your visitors, right? And so, unfortunately, we're nice to visitors, we treat them politely, but we don't invest in visitors. We don't buy from visitors. And so you've got to figure out a way to get, committed to the country you're moving into. And so how you handle that with WhatsApp is up to you, but all I'm saying is you've got to make sure that they know you are committed to the geography, that you're committed to this particular market. You're not just testing it out. So now, obviously there's going to be a lot of homework before in order to check it out, but once you get serious about committing, you've got to plant some roots in the local geography. So, one of our rules is for entrepreneurs is, you think global day one. but you have to start local. So you prove your value proposition before you come over, and then once you get global, then you have to start thinking local in each geography you move into. So that's a lot of work, that's a lot of effort. But it leads to another lesson that we've learned, which is when you go overseas, when you go to another geography, it turns out that hiring great talent is actually cheap if you find talent that is committed to your mission. So the challenge for a lot of entrepreneurs who are coming to the US is US talent is really expensive. You know, engineers are literally hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. And so, unfortunately, a lot of entrepreneurs, they come to the US, and so they can't hire full-time, so they hire consultants. Don't do that. So, consultants are not committed to your mission. Consultants are committed to making an hourly wage by helping you out. You've got to go native, you've got to network, you've got to connect with people who will join you because of the amazing vision you have for what you're going to create. So, it turns out that if you find people who are passionate about your mission as you are, they will work for less money than market wages. So that turns out, and if they're passionate about what you're doing, they will work 24/7 with you and they will sleep under the desk. But if you try to hire sort of market-based consultants and talent, you'll be spending a lot of money and getting less for it. So figure out how to network into the ecosystem, connect with people who are passionate about what you're doing, and then, bring on board those people however you can afford to make sure you get a team that is committed to the local geography. So, another lesson that we've learned over the years is that it's really, really important that when you connect with the local environment, you understand that being a successful entrepreneur is not about inventing new technology. So we talk about the difference between an inventor and an innovator. And an inventor is someone who's developed a product and they are in love with that product. And they're convinced that if only the world can see their brilliant product, then they will be the path to their door. And the difference between an inventor and an innovator is an inventor wants the world to appreciate their brilliant invention. An innovator is a person who wants to take advantage of an opportunity that new technology enables, who wants to solve a big problem, and they will do whatever they can to create the value, to deliver a compelling value proposition, to exploit that opportunity or solve that problem. And if it turns out that what you have developed so far doesn't work in the United States, and it might not work perfectly day one, you've got to be willing to pivot. You've got to be willing to adjust. You've got to go talk to customers to make sure you understand what those customers really need. And so sometimes in workshops, I will tell entrepreneurs, believe it or not, you've got to learn how to steal. Now, my partners hate it when I say this out loud, but look at all of the successful tech companies on the planet, okay? Apple and Google and Microsoft and Oracle and, name another company. None of them invented the technology on which their success is based. All of them cast their net and looked at other emerging technologies and, how shall we say, adopted those technologies. Apple didn't invent the microcomputer. Google did not invent search. Oracle did not invent relational databases. Microsoft, did not invent the operating system. What did those companies invent? They're not focused on invention, they're focused on innovation. Finding other people's ideas and technologies and putting them together in a novel way that will change the world. And so with that, I know I'm out of time. And I really appreciate your patience listening to me. I'm going to be back on stage this afternoon for the Startup World Cup. And thank you very much.